Good afternoon, good evening to all the participants, all the students, parents who are joining this conference webinar to understand our applied petroleum engineering programs. So I would like to start with my brief introduction about the panel. I'm Dr. Sunil Khare. I head the Department of Engineering. A brief introduction about myself. I worked in petroleum industry and I'm PhD from IIT ISM Dhanbad in geochemistry. And for last 2 years, I am heading this program. I'm heading this department where we have applied petroleum engineering with upstream as a specialization as the premier flagship programs of the department. With this brief introduction, I hand over to Dr. P. Vijay to introduce himself.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sunil. Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Vijay, head of the Department of Chemical Engineering. In our department, we have two programs, BTech Petroleum Engineering, specialization in gas stream, and BTech Chemical Engineering, specialization in refining and petrochemicals. And I am heading this department for the past 4 years. I have finished my PhD from IIT Madras in chemical engineering, and I am having a few years of experience as R&D engineer in new product development in polymers. My area of specialization were in polymers, modeling and simulation, and in process design. And now we have two other panel members, Mr. Ramesh and Mr. Vijay Jadhav. So Sunil, I request you to give a small intro of Mr. Vijay Jadhav.
Yeah. So welcome, Mr. Vijay. Mr. Vijay is a Schlumberger operations geologist, and he has worked in field for almost like 2 decades, more than 2 decades in oil and gas industry as a pore pressure engineer, as a well site geologist, and he has vast experience, global experience in drilling and measurement system. And he is with us today to answer some of the queries related to petroleum industry. And I request now Mr. Ramesh, Mr. Vijay to introduce about Mr. Ramesh.
Right. So Ramesh is a scientist and having a industrial experience of around 14 years working on developing processes related equipment for harsh operating conditions like very high temperatures, pressures, corrosive environments, etc. for various petrochemical and chemical processes industries. So he is also highly involved in troubleshooting of these things. And he is from a very famous glass company, that is Saint-Gobain. So over to Ramesh.
Yeah, thank you very much, Doctor. So thanks for the opportunity. Yeah.
Okay, so now coming to our agenda of discussion. So there is we have I can see almost like 85 participants in the webinar, and most of the participants who are looking for petroleum engineering as a career as a study branch for themselves in the future. So they must be having several questions. They must be having several, they need some clarity and understanding about what petroleum engineering is all about, what is its contribution to the society, how the world is dependent on oil and gas, and what are the different processes involved in finally for a general student for a general gentleman, for a general child who is not into the petroleum industry. For him, the real interface for any oil and gas, thing is just when she goes to the petrol pump and gets her car filled with petrol, or when PNG or CNG or LPG cylinder comes to their house or a piped gas comes to their home. So there is a long process there is a long supply chain, there is a long exploration and production process involved, which leads to finally getting oil or gas or diesel or petrol at the doorstep of somebody or at the petrol pump. So we as petroleum engineers, we enable those processes, and as petroleum engineering students get to learn all these processes. There are basically three buckets, three silos into which the whole process of finally you getting the oil and gas at your doorstep involves. Number one is upstream, number two is midstream, and third is downstream. When we say upstream, what is upstream basically? Let's try to understand. Upstream is basically exploration and production of hydrocarbons. So hydrocarbon includes oil and gas both. So how it is produced, where it is found. So probably all student who has passed 12th standard, they must be aware that oil and gas is found deep below the earth's crust. It is found somewhere inside the earth's crust, and it is just like any other mineral deposit, any other economical deposit, which is found several thousands of feet below the earth. So finding where exactly it is located, that is the job of exploration petroleum geologist. That is what is specialization of Mr. Vijay Jadhav is. He has been doing that job for almost like 2 decades. Then finally, once we get to know where the petroleum is located, crude oil basically we call crude oil or gas is located, then next is how to take it out. We drill a hole, we take it out, we produce it, then it is a very complex technology, lot of capital intensive projects, millions and billions of dollars, and a lot of geopolitics involved. Everything, the whole world economy, world politics is around this exploration and production of oil and gas. Then once it comes out, and most of the time it is produced from very, very hazardous environments, like inside the sea, some hundreds of kilometers away, like what we have Bombay High, which is almost like 150 kilometers offshore from Mumbai, or in the Siberian fields, or in Rajasthan, deserts of Rajasthan, or many inhospitable areas. We are lucky if we get oil in some hospitable and good areas where there is no challenge of logistics and supply chain. So once we get that oil, once we produce that oil on the surface, then that transportation of that oil is a global business. So most of the oil, as you must be aware, is produced from the Middle East and from the North Sea, from the offshore. Offshore means from the sea. Then that oil is transported to different refineries, to different countries. And when it reaches refineries, then it is processed, it is refined. And distillation and processing and refining is a big business. And after refining, downstream, now midstream is all about transportation of oil from production sites to refining sites. Then finally, it's refining and it's marketing, that is part of downstream. So all the refining companies like IOCL, BPCL, HPCL, they take a crude oil, refine it, and make it different petrochemical products, which are supplied to the market. And one product is diesel or petrol, which comes to your petrol pump. So this is the whole process of oil and gas industry, whole supply chain and logistics, and all the business processes I explained in nutshell. So now coming to a very basic question, that with now recent months, most of us are locked down in home. Especially students, they are not going out, they are just stuck in home, and they are studying from their home. Online classes are going on. So there is a lot of worry that there are no flights moving around, there are no planes coming from America to India, there are very limited flights within India, there are very little transport on the road. So there is a question that is there a worthwhile future for oil and gas industry? For somebody who has not seen the oil and gas cycle, I would like to answer this question that oil and gas has always been a cyclic business, and it has been a very rewarding business. It is a kind of, high risk, high gain kind of business. So it has always been highest paying job in the world with the highest, sometimes risk. So definitely now, if you look at all the sectors, whether it be hospitality or hotel or food industry, even basic industries are badly affected by COVID-19. But everybody knows that COVID-19 is a temporary phenomenon. There have been many pandemics in the history, and it is also one of those, and it will die down after a few months. A lot of vaccines are coming, medicines are coming. Every day we hear, and slowly, maybe another 4-6 months time, or 1 year time, it will become a disease as usual, and business will be as usual. Then again, the demand is going to surge. And there are chances that demand may become higher, because we have seen that after every down cycle, there is a huge surge in the up cycle also. So this is just for any seasoned professional. This is just one small breaker, which will just go away. Then with this, so another question I would like to ask Mr. Vijay, Mr. Vijay Jadhav, that people also think that most of the oil is already discovered and there are no reserves left. So if I join petroleum industry, if there will be no oil, then what is my role in the future? So sometimes there are some conspiracy theories, some theories going on around that there is no oil left and all oil has already been digged out of the earth. So because you are a seasoned geologist who is leading exploration projects of some of the leading companies, being part of the Schlumberger for so many years, what is your opinion about this question?
Okay, Sunil, good question. Actually, people have this misconception in their mind that we are running out of all the oil, whatever we have it. There's nothing like that. Every day we are studying the new areas and we are trying to discover something new. It's not that we are just sitting on the current reserves, what we have discovered. So every day we try to find something new, and new fields are coming up. And even looking at this COVID situations, what you are saying, the limited mobility of people and all, that's why everybody is just stuck at home, and we are doing all these kind of studies right now because no exploration or the field work is going on. So most of the time we are doing such kind of a work in these conditions. So looking at the future, definitely we'll be discovering something new and which will be helpful to the all rest of the world.
Yeah. So basically, most of the oil and gas companies, big integrated oil companies like BP, Shell, they have a portfolio of exploration, production, and then refining. Everything is integrated. There are multiple portfolios. So whatever revenue they have, a certain portion of that revenue goes in the exploration of assets. So they keep on whatever they discover and produce, whatever they produce, of new assets they add into their portfolio. It means if X number of barrels of oil is produced, almost similar number will be added in their reserves as a new discovery. So this is a continuous phenomena. That is how most of the oil and gas companies work. And if you ask with any ExxonMobil or BP or Shell or those portfolio managers, they will say they have sufficient assets to last for another 30, 40, 50 years. So that should not be a challenge. Then next is, I would like to ask Mr. Ramesh, that what is the role of biofuels you see in the future? Because we hear a lot of a lot of articles talk about clean energy and biofuels. So will they replace the traditional oil and gas which is produced from the earth, or oil and gas is still going to be there and they are just going to be a kind of supplement to that?
Yeah. Thank you, Sunil. I think this is one of the buzzword we have been talking about for a long time, and I'm happy to share with you that I'm involved in developing equipments for bio-based fuels for a Denmark-based company with a tie-up with a Swedish-based automotive company. It's a blend of conventional and bio-based fuel. Yes, definitely bio is picking up, no doubt, and but it's not like it is completely replaces the conventional petroleum products. So it is okay. What is the pain point today? We have to look from that perspective. The pain point is we have the issues with pollution, number one, with the conventional petroleum feeds. So, and bio is kind of safer, blending of this could give a good combination of fuel for the future. It has, though it has not been commercialized yet. Predominantly in Europe and US, people are using it, but it has a lot of future, across the globe. Especially the countries active today are Brazil and some part of these Nordic countries, but not in Asia, where the consumption is more and where it is import-based economy. So even in India also we have huge potential going forward. Yes, bio-based has a good future along with the conventional, the petroleum. Yeah.
Okay. So it is going to be a blend. I remember there was a flight from Dehradun to SpiceJet flight from Dehradun to Delhi, which ran with a biofuel. But then its one engine was on biofuel and another probably it was
the ATF.
yeah. So it is like we are going for blending, but that does not mean it is 100% biofuel. It will be 5%, 10% blending. And if you look at it, when I say biofuel, from where do we get biomass and how much can we get? The population of the world is already like in billions, 5 billion. We are heading towards 5 billion. We need a lot of agriculture land, lot of forest for food, for our daily needs. And petroleum is found from the subsurface. So it is not that we are going to give all our agriculture land for production of jatropha or for production of sugarcane or for production of, there is a limit to it. So it will always be what I understand is it will always be a limited blend, 5%, 10% blend of biofuel into the what we have, what we produce from subsurface, from oil and gas, from our oil and traditional oil and gas wells. Right. So it cannot be just that all oil and everything will be 100% run by biofuels. That is not practically feasible. Then another query people ask is like, what is the role of solar? Will it replace oil and gas? Again, the same thing. There will be unconventional, there will be clean, people will opt for clean sources of energy, but that does not mean that is the end of the, it is, when something new comes in the market, there is lot of buzz. Like if we get a new cloth, we are very happy to wear it. Similarly, oil and gas is something which is going on for years, for decades, for centuries. But these are now new buzzwords, so these look very fancy and look as if they will replace everything. But we need to do a real data-driven modeling and data-driven understanding that how much replacement is possible by solar energy or by biofuels. They will be there. They will be in small proportions, but the major chunk will still for decades to come will be driven by oil and gas. So then there is another question, like there is a lot of disruption going on in the industry, not in just this industry. Every industry you see, there is a buzzword called digital transformation. So digital transformation is basically any manufacturing industry, any industry, whether it be aviation industry or you say any car manufacturing plant, everywhere digital AI, ML, cloud computing, machine learning, they are now driving the whole, they are transforming the way the business is done, cloud computing. So the same technologies are also going to impact oil and gas industry as well. So I would like to hear from Dr. P. Vijay, that how do you see the disruption of digital technologies in oil and gas industry, petroleum industry, upstream and downstream?
Yeah. See, now thank you, Dr. Sunil, for asking this question, because now everyone is going for digitalization. And now industries are also focusing on Industry 4.0. So they are converting everything in digitalized mode. And now we are having a buzzword called the Internet of Things. So now we are using what you can say, the technology to control things. Now it is slowly going towards the industries also to control the equipment. So it is called the industrial IoT, and a few of the companies have started working with this industrial IoT to control the industrial equipment for the production. And slowly it is becoming digitalization, even in the industries also. So, and as you are asking about this, especially this unprecedented pandemic, what is the situation in chemical industries? So, I can say that this is only a temporary pass for all the industries. This is not only with the chemical industries or oil and gas industries. And this is only a temporary pass, and we are going to pass this. Okay. And I request Mr. Ramesh to add on this about the industrial digitalization, what they are doing in their company or in any other company which he knows of.
Sure, Vijay. I think, to be frank, the big data analysis, what we're talking about, the data analysis in general, it could be AI, as Dr. Sunil mentioned, or machine learning. This has become, one of the core area of any chemical industry, I would say, because today we are, at least I'm catering to, I have exposure to at least more than 12 or 13 kinds of, chemical industry. So what we are doing, maybe I can give you a simple example, the data what historically we have in a chemical industry is not so organized. And we don't know, though we were trying to collect some data in the industry, but we don't know what to do with that. I mean, until, few years, till few years. But now, using the data, we could able to have some kind of trend analysis, like, okay, given equipment, still how much life we can expect, plus, and what is the inventory time, and when to order it, when to get it done, so that my plant could be in operation uninterrupted. So this is very critical information. It could be a compressor, it could be a reactor, it could be anything, starting from raw material all the way to sending end product. So the data analysis, digitalization has a clear role in an industry, and industry 4.0, converting a conventional industry into a completely digitalized one, is across the globe. It's a revolutionary thing, especially with very less number of operators, and trying to have more efficient, energy efficient, plant operation. So it has a lot to do. It's contributing in a bigger way. Even steel melting, foundry, where the skill labor is not really, so the big data is contributing about sophisticated petrochemical complex. So yes, it has a very big role when it comes to digitalization and data analysis. Yeah, I don't know if I answer. Is it answer your question?
Yes,
or
Yeah.
So I would like to add that exploration and production of oil and gas is totally data driven. How it is totally data driven? Oil and gas is 99.9% found below the earth. By no means you can see it lying on the ground. It is not physically visible on the surface of the earth. If there is a big reservoir in, say, Saudi Arabia, which is 150 kilometers long and 10 kilometers or 20 kilometers wide, it is almost like 3 kilometers, 4 kilometers below the earth. So how do we know where it is located? Something which is below the earth, there has to be some data. And what is that data? We drill the well, we run our geophysical tools, we do some geophysical survey, we do some geological survey, and based on that, based on whatever data we get, we do a modeling. And with that modeling, we come up with a conclusion that so many million, billion barrels of oil is trapped somewhere here inside the earth. So this has traditionally been, for decades, from the very beginning of the exploration of oil and gas, this has been a data-driven industry. The thing was, earlier the data was less. I remember when we started with our initial career, there was like we used to carry, there used to be draftsmen who used to make a vertical section of a well at the well site. There was no computer. Or there was a little bit of, a small 486 type of computer, and a CD data will be there, which for 28 days, one CD will be there, and that CD will be sent as a final well report from the well site to the geologist office. Then came the real-time transmission of data. Then came number of sensors increased. So the data volume has continuously increased and increased and increased, and probably oil industry is the biggest consumer of the data. One of the highest volumes of data getting generated, transmitted, and interpreted. So since Mr. Vijay Jadhav, he's a geologist, and he can better explain, he can better give us a big overview that how deep the data-driven industry, this is the exploration of oil and gas is, and how digital technologies can help us in further exploration and production of oil and gas, and how they can reduce the overall cost of exploration, these new technologies, and how they are really, really critical and important for this sector of economy.
Good question, Sunil sir. What's happening nowadays is, like earlier you said, the cloud computing is coming up, then AI is. So basically the industry is going under the correction, and looking at the prices, the way prices are hovering around, and the economics is going around. So most of the companies are looking towards the AI or something which has been done remotely. So definitely there'll be a lot of data which is needed to generate this kind of AI and cloud computing and all. So a lot of work is currently going on. So in future, if somebody is really learning something about the AI and the clouds and all, that will be definitely helping in future. So looking at the data, yes, it is day by day it's increasing. So there is a lot of scope in that.
But I would like to add that when we say technology, technology is just a jargon unless it is implemented suitably and provides a business value. So if we say AI or ML, people learn it, say why we should not study computer engineering, where we learn AI and ML. But ultimately that AI and ML has to be applied somewhere to find out, to create a business value. And that is where oil and gas industry is at the cusp of transformation, where there will be huge digitization. There is large volume of data. It is a very capital intensive project. There is a lot of pressure on reducing the cost of operations. Most of the operations are happening in hospitable terrains. Logistics, transportation is a big cost. If somebody has to be mobilized from say Bombay to Bombay High, why not if some automated process can drill the well from sitting in the Bombay or sitting in some RTOC, real-time operation center? How we can reduce the number of people working in Siberia? How can digital RTOCs enable video analytics and all those things by which things can be automated? So these things are going to happen, and those who are technology savvy, those who think that they are real technologies, and those who are innovators, for them engineering is the right way. Where they can use their skills. Technology is business value. They can create their own companies. They can create their own patents. They can get their own royalties. Drilling is a very, very tough job. It is one of the toughest jobs in the world. If some driller which is standing at a drilling console in Middle East at the temperature of 55, 60 degrees centigrade temperature in the afternoon, it's really tough. Or a topman who is top of ground, or in offshore conditions where there are a lot of storms, lot of thunderstorms, lot of rough weather. How we can automate those processes? And if we drill 10 wells, there is hardly chances of success of one well getting oil is 1 or 2. How we can increase that success rate of wells? Geophysical surveys, they are very tough. There has been different long wave. There is a technology by young Stanford graduate, long waveform inversion, by which the success rate of discovery has improved many folds. So that is where a lot of innovations, lot of transformation, use of machine learning, how we can read the mind of the driller, and how we can create algorithms by which drilling can be automated. I think Schlumberger is already working on that. There are several projects going on by different leading oil and gas companies to automate the drilling process. It is like, you must have heard that one day Garry Kasparov was defeated by one computer of IBM in the chess game, and Garry Kasparov used to be Karpov used to be the world champion. So similarly, how maybe drilling efficiency optimization can be done by defining different algorithms which can predict any kind of, or they can be used like a radar. There can be a radar in front of a drilling bit which can predict any kind of issues, any kind of problem, hard formations, those things. So all these technologies, AI, machine learning, physics, computing, they can help driller, and they can replace the driller in the years to come. So there is a lot of scope for introduction of technology, development of better technology in the oil and gas sector. And there is a lot of pressure, as I already said, there is a lot of pressure on optimization of the cost. So if these technologies are developed, they will definitely optimize the cost. So there is, especially for technology-driven people, students, those who love to play with technology, this is the right field to be. Any comments, Dr. Vijay, on that?
Yeah, very nice thing. And we are getting few interesting questions from the panel also, from the participants. So this can go to Mr. So questions are like this. How stable do you think the petroleum industry would be for next 30 to 40 years? So there are many other clean and renewable sources energy that are coming up. How do you think these energies would influence the petroleum industry?
So Mr. Vijay, would you like to answer this question?
Okay, okay, sir, I'll take this question. 30 to 40 years, it's too long period to really comment on. But if you had seen the past history, every 5 to 10 years, there is some correction in the oil prices. So it goes up and down. So there is no chance that it will be very stable, but definitely the industry is good. So we can still continue in this industry and look for a bright future.
Okay.
Okay.
So there are
one more.
yeah.
One more interesting question is: what are the major scientific inputs you gather before going for any exploration for both crude oil as well as for gas? What are all the major scientific inputs you gather before going for?
Major scientific inputs, we are looking mainly for the seismic data. From the seismic data, we try to generate a model. From that model, we look for a prospective area where we can drill. And if we have some nearby well which can support our findings, then only we can go for drilling.
And also we segmenting, which is of just not very old, which is it shouldn't be preemptive. It should not amorphous. It is a sedimentary basin, productive basin, so which has good porosity, permeability. So we start prospecting in such type of basins.
Okay.
So look,
yeah. So
is it hard to become a petroleum engineer? Very interesting question. No, we are there. We are just like you. So it is not hard to become a petroleum engineer. Petroleum engineer is like any other engineer, but yes, it is a very outgoing branch, and it is very interesting. And those who want to travel and those who want to have see the world, for them this is the right place to work.
Okay.
And so, does the petroleum branch is best when compared to CSC and EE? So I will say Computer science and engineering, they are emerging branches. Every day new technology. Today is AI ML, tomorrow something ML, instead of AI it will be BI, I don't know, CI, DI. So every day it is changing, but this is a basic branch and this is the basic need. And petroleum engineering has been for years, for centuries, and it will continue for another half century, I believe. And I'm not sure computer engineering came into existence some almost like 20 years back as an engineering, 30 years back, if I'm not wrong, not more than that, not more than 50 years. And so it is, petroleum engineering has been there for a long time and it will remain there for a long time. And it is not that, you can see that every 5 years it changes something. It comes up with a new avatar. So, so
are the operators, but whereas where the natural resources are abundant, funds. And for example, a country like Turkmenistan, where they're ready to convert gas into liquid because they have abundance of gas resource. So one can never replace the other. It's a question of the availability of the resources in that region.
correct.
Okay.
Okay.
This one is a very interesting question.
I would like to add. I would like to add some more. I would like to add some more, because this question is directly related to role of electric motor vehicles versus internal combustion engines. Right? When you ask this question, that most of the machines are using electricity. First of all, let us there is a lot of buzzword, a lot of talks going on that electrical vehicles, right? So it is Tesla and other companies are coming up, but we have to keep this thing in mind, that internal combustion engine, which is run by oil and gas, petrol, diesel and gas, it has been developed as a technology for almost like 50 years. There have been continuous refinements, whether it be a plane flying from India to US. That technology has developed for almost like 60, 70, 80 years, 90 years. Then that reliability has come. After so many crashes of the engine, after so many accidents, after so many refinements, after so many research and development, we have come to a technology which is so reliable, which is so efficient. So just think, give some minutes and think very coolly, what are the problems possible with an electric engine? What are the challenges? Everybody says battery operated. We can just have a battery. But what all challenges those batteries set up? How much of lithium? From where we provide all those? How will we set up that infrastructure of the kind of infrastructure we have of petrol pump and CNG stations? How long it will take to create similar infrastructure of battery? You will need to replace the battery. How will be recharged? Will need a recharge station. It will again come to electricity. Will it be efficient? Are actually those cars which are running on electricity, are they that reliable as the internal combustion engine? Actually, I was in one of the workshops of Ministry of Petroleum in Delhi, and there is a professor from IIT Kanpur Mechanical Department, Professor Agrawal. He has done a complete research on internal combustion engine versus electrical engine. And you will start laughing on yourself the way he has explained that it is all just, big talks. But when it comes to actual comparison, it will take probably decades to replace any kind of internal combustion engine from the road. So this is my answer to this question. Yes, Dr. Vijay, next question.
Yeah. Actually, one interesting question is, what is the scope of girls in petroleum and chemicals? I think they are asking from the industry point of view. I think Mr. Vijay Yadav and Mr. Ramesh can answer this. What is the scope of girls after finishing their undergraduate or postgraduate from petroleum or chemical engineers in industry? After they are graduating, what is the scope?
See,
No,
sir,
first of all,
there is girls are not left behind nowadays. Girl empowerment and women empowerment is going on. So girls shouldn't
the other
be
way around.
afraid of getting. So everybody is there, and all leadership girls or ladies who are there, they are also working all together with us. So, there is a good scope. So you don't have to worry.
It is the other way around. There are more opportunities for girls now.
Girls and the boys, yes.
And you see, like if you see in Indian Army or Indian Air Force fighter, I was passing out parade yesterday. I saw fighter pilots, trained pilots. They are coming. They are girls. So they have, and especially this is an international industry. So if you go to somewhere in Australia or US, you will find on the rigs drillers are ladies. They're just working in hand and together. And besides that, those who are looking for easy job also, like as I said, it is a data driven. So whether it be boy or girl, if you want to go for data interpretation and all, data driven reservoir engineering, reservoir modeling and simulation, lab based studies, there are also a lot of opportunities are there in petroleum engineering.
Mr. Ramesh, you can add something on that from the industry point of view.
Yeah, I very much agree with Vijay Jadavji and Dr. Sunil and women empowerment in the industry. So in our industry, for example, we have around 3% of women in our top level. So that industry has a target to increase at least to 13%. Talking about a company of 2 lakh people, you can see how big is the opportunity for women. It is definitely a lot. Yeah.
So this is for Mr. Vijay Yadav, or
what are the average packages offered from UPS in petroleum engineering? There is a question from Yusuf. So average package it offered from UPS. Well, there are complete spectrum of companies coming to UPS. It could be Schlumberger, it could be Halliburton, it could be ONGC, it could be Shell, it could be BP. So they are all good masters, I will say, and it depends upon the company to company which offers the package. They have their own standard policies regarding compensation and packages. So they define the package. And I would like to say that petroleum engineering packages are better than most of the other sectors. They are much, much better than other sectors.
So, Mr. Ramesh, can you give some glimpse, since you are in the design of various equipment, and every equipment is going to have a different kind of energy source for that. So some will operate in electricity, some will operate in oil, or some will operate with gas. So what I am asking is the shared distribution of fuel or the sources of power, like electrical, batteries, solar, petroleum, LPG, CNG, or anything.
You're asking me?
No, Mr. Ramesh.
No, yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I didn't really get the question.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
See, there are different sources of power.
Right.
So, so how it is going to be? Because there is a complete confusion in the type of fuel which is going to be in the future. Because whether it is going to be completely electrical based or solar based, petroleum based, LPG or CNG. So how it is going to be?
I think partly we have answered this question during, switching over from electricity to oil and gas. I mean, also Sunil, Dr. Sunil tried to address the same in a different way, taking automotive as example. So what I'm saying is nothing can replace the other resource completely. Though the electricity, kind of picking up, it is not been industrialized. To be frank, at least in the petrochemical level, I mean, powered with oil or gas today, electricity, its share will be increased. Emission, you have to see this way also. Overall, the demand for the energy also increasing in the industry. So which means, though the electricity may take some part of it, but overall, the absolute numbers of each energy segment in the industry.
Probably there is some connectivity issue.
I don't know.
Ramesh, you are not able to hear you.
Can you hear me?
No. Actually, there is a problem with your audio.
We move to next question. No issue.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah.
Okay. So, sir, does Indian people can get job easily after completion of our graduation because there is lack of companies in when compared to foreign? Well, this is these are kind of apprehensions. Number one, I would like to say that there are when it comes to downstream, there are a lot of companies. There is a lot of city gas distribution happening, CGD. Yeah. There is a lot of scope. India is going to be a gas-based economy, and for gas-based economy, you need petroleum engineers with the gas background. So there is a lot of scope. There is future, and in exploration and production upstream also, government has come up with new policies. It is opening up the sector. There is a lot of scope on enhanced oil recovery. There is a lot of scope of, policies are being tweaked. So I heard just 10 days back, Joint Secretary, Petroleum Ministry, there is a lot of rapid response now from all exploration and production companies to come in India. So definitely there is going to be a lot of activity, and Indian public sector companies, they are going to continue their work, whether it be ONGC or Oil India Limited, they are going to recruit the way they are doing. And a lot of petroleum engineers, they are required as consultants. They are required to support the back-end activity of their, big shots in Bangalore and all, like Shell has their technology center, ExxonMobil has their technology center, Schlumberger has technology center, Halliburton has technology center. They need petroleum engineers. They need subject matter experts who can support, product development. So there are multiple opportunities for petroleum engineer in India, and in the core sector also, in the field also, the activity is going to increase in coming future, and there will be opportunities in India itself.
Yeah, as Sunil has already mentioned, the scope of gas distribution, and recently we had a interaction with FICCI. They also told that they are expanding the gas transmission and distribution across major cities also. So there is a scope for huge scope for petroleum engineers, both upstream as well as for gas stream. And there is one interesting question, that is how your petroleum engineering.
I would like to just add to this question that government has come up with ambitious plan of increasing city gas distribution to 300 cities of India.
Right.
That's a big number. And they are all metropolitan cities and tier 1, tier 2 cities with population of say 10 lakhs plus, 15 lakhs plus, 20 lakhs plus. So, and how many petroleum engineering institutes are there, worthwhile are there in India? Probably you can count on fingers. And UPS is among the top 5 petroleum engineering institutes of India. So from where the requirement of trained and skilled and employable professional engineers will be met, professional petroleum engineers will be met from these institutes only, whether it be ISM or RGIPT or UPS. There are like 3, 4, 5 institutes who are going to be the major feeders, major suppliers of petroleum engineers for this ambitious plan of Government of India.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a very, very interesting question. Is petroleum engineering stressful?
Any work can go stressful, sir. It could be a smaller job also. It depends on how you handle your job. So
Yes.
if you're good at your job, there shouldn't be any problems. So be positive on your approach to whatever
You
job
should go
you do,
to,
and,
yes.
keep your things at the basic level, and keep your fundamentals clear. So that won't create any issues in your jobs in future.
Yeah, go to good university like UPS, learn, make your concepts very clear, learn your skills, then petroleum engineering will not be a tough job for you.
Right. So one question I just want to take, the difference between upstream and gas stream. So I will just give what you can say outline of this, and Dr. Sunil can add on this later. So upstream focuses on the exploration, drilling and production of crude oil. And once the crude oil reaches the ground surface, there we have this the separation of gas processing, distribution, that is your city gas distribution, and even your the new forms of gas exploration, like your shale gas, so everything comes under your gas stream. So Sunil, can you add something on this?
Yeah, upstream is all about exploration and production. So basically, as I explained earlier, upstream, what is upstream? So there are 3 pillars of upstream. One is reservoir engineering, production engineering, drilling engineering. So basically, first of all, we find out where the reservoir is inside the earth, then we drill it, and once we drill it, then we produce it. So exploration is basically, first of all, finding where the reservoir is, that is petroleum geology, petroleum geophysics, understanding geophysical survey, geological survey, and then finding out the location of the reservoir, then doing exploratory drilling, and then finally doing a development drilling and establishing the reservoir, and then producing the oil and gas from the reservoir is upstream. Then there are very specialized processes involved in processing of gas, which are taught in applied petroleum engineering, gas specialization. So it also has all major parts of reservoir production and drilling, but besides that, it also teaches a lot about gas processing. So this is how we have 2 programs, upstream and gas. And is there are any good colleges for higher studies in petroleum in India? Of course, UPS is there. It is a very good college, and it is especially very good because it has a very good industry academia connect, and besides that, it has a very good locational advantage because it is located in Dehradun, and Dehradun is the oil capital of India. In terms of being the faculties, there are people who have done like career long 30 years, 40 years, who have worked in as GMs, GGMs, and remarkable professionals in oil and gas sector. We are blessed to have them coming as guest professors, as visiting professors, and full-time faculties in our departments. So that is what we have, a complete industry perspective in our programs. That is our USP.
Yeah. Now this question is to Mr. Ramesh. What is the main
Yeah, it is very broad. Chemical engineer can do almost anything, I should say. But yes, one, you can be in the field, plant operation. Second, you can be part of research and development, for example, people like me. And then you can also be, you will be a very good sales. If you are into business, you will be a very good salesperson because you know the application and fundamentals. You know you are better to convince the customer. So multiple stages of chemical engineering could be. It could be for process design, product design, even in the material science, mechanical side, almost everywhere a chemical engineer can be play a good role. Yeah, very diversified, I should say. Yeah.
Does petroleum industry involve touring the world frequently? Yes, it involves. If you are in global travel to the world. So and then what next? Any other question?
Okay.
Sir, harmful gases emerge at the well. There is a lot of technology, and it is all managed by, everything is automatically managed. People have to, there is a branch called health, safety and environment. People have to, there are different processes to manage it. So it is non-issue.
So any other point which Mr. Vijay Jadhav wants to add towards the scope of petroleum engineering in the near future, just a post-COVID session?
Currently, due to COVID,
There
there
is
are a lot of
another
restrictions on the
question.
travel.
Undergraduate mechanical engineer.
Sunil.
This is a temporary phase.
Yeah.
So there'll be definitely opportunities will be coming up. So we have to just wait and let this COVID situation get rested. And definitely once that is done, then there'll be a lot of openings coming up soon.
Okay.
There is a question, what if an undergraduate mechanical engineer proceed for master in petroleum engineering? Of course, there is a lot of scope. Master in petroleum, MTech in petroleum engineering, you can become a driller because you have a background in mechanical engineering. That is the ideal one for you, for a graduate in mechanical engineer. Most of the drillers are mechanical engineers.
Okay. So,
what about future of reservoir engineering, petroleum engineering? Reservoir, as I told you, this is one of the pillars of petroleum engineering, reservoir, production and drilling. So definitely if you are a reservoir engineer, it is, if you become a petroleum engineer, there are good chances that you become a reservoir engineer.
Yeah. So this question I just want to put across Mr. Vijay Jadhav. How does your kerogen classification under geological studies influence your exploration?
Generally, this comes under geochemistry thing. So whenever we are doing some studies where we are not really able to extract the oil from reservoirs, that time we get a help of geochemists and try to see what kind of kerogens are there and try to analyze that and come out with some ideas to do extraction from that. So like a tertiary kind of extraction from the reservoirs.
Okay. So we are running now short of time. It seems it is already 4 o'clock, 5 p.m. So respecting the time limits, we would like to conclude this session, and I would like to thank all the participants. We have almost like 100 plus participants, and they were very inquisitive, and probably we could answer most of their questions. And thanks participants for joining, and I believe your queries are resolved and you have a better clarity on petroleum engineering. And I also thank our guest, Mr. Vijay Jadhav and Mr. Ramesh, who spared their valuable time from their busy schedule in mentoring and guiding students and clearing their doubts. And I thank Dr. Vijay for joining.
Thank you.
And thanks UPS for arranging this interaction and workshop. So I believe this was worth it and it was useful to students in deciding their career priorities towards petroleum engineering.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sunil.
Thanks
Thank
all
you.
of you for joining. Thank you.
Thank you.